Well, hello everyone, and welcome again to the podcast. And I'm real excited for you to get to know Derrick Boger. And Derrick met Derrick recently, back in October of 2025, depending on when you're listening to this, at the Wise Practice Conference. And I was just so inspired by him. He was one of the keynote speakers. But Derrick, welcome.
Thank you,
Glad you're
Gordon. Look,
here.
it's a pleasure to be here. Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here, man. I'm super excited.
Yeah, so for folks that might not know you already, as I start with everyone, tell folks a little bit more about yourself and how you've landed where you've landed.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I am a licensed clinical mental health counselor. I founded a business, my private practice called Transformation Christian Counseling. I'm in Greensboro, North Carolina. Super excited about what I get to do. I'm one of those people who never felt like life was about me. It's never my
Hmm.
for no more. It's a life of service. Grew up with parents as pastors and kind of in church my whole life, but I always wanted to serve people. So from there, big in sports, won state championships, things like that. But went from there, 8 years in the military, 10 years as a firefighter, and now over 2 decades of church leadership. But God kind of planted me over to just being able to walk alongside the pains of people in life and just serving them as a therapist now. I love the work I
Hmm.
get to do. I work with men, individual and married couples as well, helping them transform their lives inside out. That's where the Transformation Christian Counseling name kind of comes from right there. Yep. Honored to
Right,
be here.
right. Yes, yes. Well, thanks, Derrick. And maybe a place where we can start is tell folks maybe a little more about how you got inspired uh, to kind of the niche that you're in. I mean, working with men, obviously you're male, and I think I know I've had a previous guest on the podcast that really we talked about how working with men is different, and I'm sure it goes without saying with your military background and your first responder background. You've seen a lot of stuff. And so how was it that maybe inspired you to kind of work with folks like that and kind of
Yeah.
what's your approach?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think even just being a man in general, definitely I'm in a female dominant field. When you think about therapists, majority of them are females. So I am considered a unicorn in the field. I'm male, I'm African American, and I'm a Christian. You put those three together again, that does stand out in its own way. And I
Mhm,
love helping other men communicate and learn more about themselves. Men are generally shy when it comes to that, Gord, to just being able to
mhm,
talk and express themselves.
mhm,
We understand women a lot of times connect by talking, they converse, they share, they draw closer like that. Men, we're not so much, Gordon. We tend to we connect by doing. Guys can
mhm,
go on a fishing trip and fish for 4, 8 hours straight and not talk. They
mhm,
say two
mhm,
words and they come back home and they had the best day of their life with their best friend, but they didn't talk a lot. Women, they can sit, and talk throughout the day, and that's kind of how they connect. So again, we're different
mhm,
how we relate. So sometimes in the therapy room, what I realize is just being a safe place to actually let men learn to communicate.
mhm,
What I've
mhm,
noticed, Gordon, is when they can open up with me personally, it's amazing how they can then go home and realize that now I'm tapping into my own emotions and I'm learning to communicate that even easier. So yeah.
Right, right. Yeah. Yeah, it is interesting how I think as men we are much more and you kind of alluded to this action oriented. In other
Yep.
words, we want to know what to do,
Yep.
not necessarily how to feel or all that sort
That's
of
right.
thing. If there's a problem that presents itself, we want to solve the problem and conquer the problem and move on to
Yeah.
to to other things. And
Yeah,
I'm
I heard a
sure.
comedian. Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead. I'm
go
sorry.
go go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah,
No.
I heard a comedian go to one time say that men have a nothing box. They talk about how like there's actually this box with nothing in it, and he talks about
Hmm.
how like men sometimes a wife will look at us and say, "Hey, what are you thinking about right now?" And they're like, "Nothing." And obviously, a woman says, "It's no way you're not thinking about nothing. You're thinking about something like a struggle, a problem."
All
And
right.
they're like, no, I'm not.
Yeah,
But there's
yeah.
parts of us where we do compartmentalize and we just say we can turn this off and still connect with our spouse. We can still watch TV. We can have a storm going around us, but we do know how sometimes to compartmentalize and put that apart and still have a different feeling or emotion. You asked me earlier about my firefighting experience and how even it connected men and working with guys. That's one thing I learned definitely in the fire department for sure. You would leave a traumatic call, something that was really life-threatening, a hard situation, but on the way back to the firehouse, you would have to switch again because the tones go off for a whole nother emergency. If you
Right.
couldn't focus on I'm done with that one and go to the next, then you would have a hard time doing that. And then I would walk home, get home to my house, sit in the garage and say a prayer before I walked in the house because I need to shake that off to be present as a
Hmm.
father and a husband to my family. So
Right.
again, learning to put these pieces apart. But I get to teach that in the counseling room. I get to sit with men and talk about, hey, emotions are important. And there's an
Hmm.
emotional intelligence we all need to be effective
Hmm.
men in our houses as well. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's an interesting thought there. As you think about emotional intelligence and teaching that, what are some of the kind of your go-tos with that as far as helping people understand that, particularly men that maybe have never
Yeah.
been around that or heard that language before?
It's great for you to even say that. And I hope women are even listening to this and they're getting it. There's a truth to when we don't trust, we don't talk. Here's the
Hmm.
truth, Gordon. Like when you think I see you nodding your head and shaking, but here's the thing: like men will not open up when they don't feel they can be vulnerable. And a lot of times, men they have this fear of like, I don't trust that if I speak where my heart is really feeling, that it's going to be received right. Maybe they're not trusting that the spouse will cheat on them, leave, do something they shouldn't do. It's simply, I don't trust what you'll do with the information. If I share my heart, will you use it against me later? Will you take this and bring it up in another argument or disagreement? So sometimes we hold back because we're not sure that we can trust how it'll be used against us at another time in life. So
Hmm.
there's this space of learning to be vulnerable, but trusting the space it is. So when women come to me like, Derrick, how do I get my husband to talk? Or a man sits on the couch and he's telling me, Derrick, how do I talk more? It first has to be a vulnerable space. And they're saying, I
Hmm.
don't know how to talk. I don't know. And I'm like, well, here's the thing. After 3 sessions with you, you're doing it with me.
Hmm.
And they're like, but you're different, Derrick. Like, I trust you. I say, interesting. Think about it, Gordon. They
Hmm.
trust me
Hmm.
and they're
Hmm.
learning to talk. So now, as we begin to grasp that, now it's easy to do once there's safety. So now, is it really
Absolutely.
So now
Hmm.
is it really the trust or is it the safety of once I trust the person, I can do it? So now we start getting to the root of it. Okay, so there's lack of trust somewhere. So there's something
Hmm.
that when you're why. So tell me about that part. So then we dig a little deeper and we figure out where that distrust is coming with that spouse.
Hmm.
What are you afraid of if you were to share your heart with your spouse? What do you
Right.
think would happen? And you begin to get a little deeper from there. So much I could say to that, Gordon, but yeah, that's true.
Yeah, 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 and I totally agree. I mean, that's just been a theme, and I also work with couples, and that's been a theme that I just see come up over and over again about being able to create a safe space for both people to be able to share their
That's right.
internal world. And that's to me is the definition of a healthy relationship is when two people can share their internal world and it be safe.
Absolutely, because what I do not increase or I mean encourage is for a couple to be together. And I see people say like, "Listen, I've been married 50 years. My grandmama was married 60 years." Well, that's great, but they lived in two different bedrooms. Like they weren't
Hmm.
happy. It doesn't have to
Hmm.
be your story. Like you could be
Hmm.
married 20 years or 80 years, but are
Hmm.
you enjoying your marriage? Like, don't just
Right.
be in it and say I never left her. Like, let's
Hmm.
work through it. Let's learn the communication skills. So I believe you should be able to be in a marriage where it's healthy and you can communicate your fears, your insecurities, your trust, your doubts, your fears, and actually have that space to communicate and grow closer. So that's what I teach. I teach people how to learn. First of all, learn how to talk to me. Because once you can say, okay, it's freeing, it's good to be able to do this and get this off my chest. Now, how do we
Hmm.
take your bride? How do we get that same space with her? And
Hmm.
at some point, Gordon, I like to bring the spouse in once they're comfortable. And
Right.
they usually come in and there's this space of like, well, I have noticed this difference in them since they've been coming to you. But
Hmm.
now I say, now let's talk about the space in which it is at home. And we'll get a little deeper into that. And from there, there's usually more unity that comes into it. But yeah, it starts with
Right.
learning how to talk with me. If they can learn to talk to me, Gordon, the problem is not always that they can't talk, is they don't feel safe. So going back to the root
Right.
of the question. Hmm.
Right. Right. So, how would you say, and this is, I know some basics as far as therapy goes, but how do you build that safety with people, do you think?
Me personally, is that what you're
Uh-huh.
asking? Oh,
Mm-hmm.
great question. I could even ask you that, Gordon. You
Mm-hmm.
saw me. We got to meet at the conference, the summit, and it was great. And I
Mm-hmm.
think there's a connectivity that I truly believe. Here's the truth about me. I love people,
Mm-hmm.
hands down. Like, I don't know if you know me more than 5 minutes, you'll get that. There's some people watching this video right now or hearing the podcast, and they can feel my energy right now. I
Mm-hmm.
love people. That's undeniable.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
may not know you. I may not, I may not only be in the room for 10 minutes, but when I leave a person's presence, I like to believe this. Did I help them feel better or did I make their day worse? So my heart is truly to serve people and get the best out of them. So if that becomes magnetic, because here's the beauty: when someone walks in a room and they're not happy, they're
Mm-hmm.
depressed, they're sad, it is amazing how that energy can fall on you.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
especially as men, you walk in the room, oh, dad's in a bad mood. Oh my goodness, he's about to kick the dog. Everything's bad, nothing's happy. And now people reserve back, they pull back in the house. But a smile is also contagious. When you bring good energy, it is as well. So here's the answer to your question, Gordon. When a client comes in, that's felt. Sometimes the connection
Mm-hmm.
and the safety is what I exude because I truly care about people. Well, somebody's
Mm-hmm.
listening, they're like, well, how do you know if somebody cares? You can usually feel it.
Right.
You may not remember my name, you may not remember who I am, but you'll remember how I made you feel. And that'll never change. So when you're in my presence, can you feel my heart, my care,
Mm-hmm.
my
Mm-hmm.
empathy for you? And I think it goes back to just personality 101. Like if you truly care for people, it'll show. Um,
Right.
so yeah.
Yeah. So another thing too, Derek, is and I suspect you're aware of this, but the other thing too is that when I first listened to you speak, you also got very vulnerable with people. You
Hmm.
shared your internal world and some of your life's experiences and some of the things that you maybe struggled with or things that you failed at, those kinds of things. Because I believe your talk was on basically on imposter syndrome and us getting over that as therapists. And I think when therapists can do, even though we're in a lot of our training, we're taught not to do this, but I think self-disclosure just builds credibility. It opens the door for people to say, "Oh, this person is not that much different than me,"
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
they feel safe.
Absolutely. Who doesn't want to relate to somebody? Like there's a
Hmm.
relatability, like, oh, they're not sitting here as a perfect person who's never had a mistake. They can relate to, being flawed or having mistakes and those kind
Hmm.
of things. So I'm big in the church as well. I'm in church leadership, those kind of things. But
Right.
also like so I'll see people who come in, they're kind of hurt. They're mad at God, they're this and this. And instead of me preaching Jesus over their head, it's simply, I just want to love on you. But I can remind people
Hmm.
that, hey, I know what it feels like. I know what
Hmm.
church hurt feels like. I know what it feels like to be abandoned by God. I know what it feels like to
Hmm.
lose a brother that meant everything to me at the age of 27. Like I
Hmm.
can relate to the pains, but then I say, but God. And then I point
Hmm.
them to like, there is a way out of this. You don't have to stay there.
Hmm.
But I think the
Right.
connection that people need sometimes is just the heart of like understanding there's empathy that someone has and compassion for who I am and the mistakes I've made. I've
Right.
sat in rooms where people have told me they're pregnant and they're not happy about it. And they're like, I'm deciding these things and I can't tell my parents. And, but it's like, hey, I make mistakes too. And thank God that my children are under one roof with my wife, but I made some mistakes when I was young. And sometimes just hearing people relate to your story, it could have been me if it wasn't for the grace of God, but yet
Hmm.
there's still love, there's still hope, there's still direction, there's still these things ahead of you. So, but being able to be with people in the middle of their situations
Hmm.
brings
Yeah.
more connection as well.
Right. Yeah. One of the things that Derek and I share in common is I'm also very church was very much part of my life as well. And
Mhm.
uh,
Yeah.
like like Derrick, I grew up as a PK, preacher's kid, and
Yep.
so
Uh-huh.
know that world well.
Yeah.
But I think one of my mantras that relates to this, Derrick, is just letting people know that they're not alone. And I think that's exactly, not to get too far off on a pulpit here, but I think that's exactly what Christ taught was is that to let people know they're not alone, and also that they're seen and that you're not
Yeah.
invisible. I mean, that was just over and over again. He would, um, you know, reach out to the people that were invisible in their society of that time, and so I think that goes a long, long way, in just you know building rapport and just helping people with their healing.
Yeah. It's so true. And the thing we all are hurting. And that's one thing about me, Gordon, I don't walk into Target with the Bible in my arms. Like
Hmm.
I don't
Hmm.
walk in, I don't beat Jesus over the head with people. I just love people because that's what Christ would do.
Hmm.
So part of that
Hmm.
is, do they feel God through me? Is there a
Hmm.
better experience that they have with my faith? It's something about that guy that I really like. What is it about him? Then I get to say, well, I'm so glad you asked. And I can
Hmm.
encourage them and lead them to those things. But I like to walk with the mantra of what would Jesus do if he was
Hmm.
here? For those
Hmm.
of faith, we understand that Jesus is not walking this earth again. I mean, he'll come back again one day, but he's not 33 years he was here. But there's principle of like we're the hands and feet of Jesus. So as we
Hmm.
get to walk this earth and be a light to those around us, how are we taking that? And I don't take for granted
Right.
one moment to be able to do that. So yeah,
Yeah.
I really just love to do that. But here we are as people, as we get back to it, like we all have
Hmm.
baggage. We all have issues. We have
Absolutely.
traumas. We all have things that we face in life, but there is a hope. There is a
Hmm.
greater purpose behind it all. And what
Hmm.
an honor, Gordon, when we can sit with people and help them walk through it. If I break my elbow right now, I
Hmm.
go to a doctor who can heal my elbow.
Hmm.
So, what about my mind? What about the mental capacity where we're hurting and we're not getting over certain things? I believe I'm a gift of God that can sit here and maybe I'm trained and taught and led to be able to sit with you and help you through a mental state that you're going through. Um, why is it we can take our car to be fixed, but not sit with the person to help us with our mind and our mental
Hmm.
capacity?
Right.
The neck down, we work on it. We go exercise, we work out. But the neck up, that's what our specialty is. How can I help someone learn to walk out what
Hmm.
God's called them to do in their own lives? So yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, I think yeah, yeah, and a big part of that is seeing seeing a person for who they are and
Yeah.
recognize helping them recognize that they are also a child of God, made in God's image, and regardless of mistakes they've made, regardless of whatever's going on in their life, um, there could be healing from all of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
true. There's a scripture that jumped out to me real quick. Hebrews 12:1. It says, let us strip off every weight that slows us down,
Mm-hmm.
especially the sin that so easily trips us up. And let us run
Mm-hmm.
with endurance the race that God has set before us. What I mean by that is just letting things away, getting rid of
Mm-hmm.
the things that's holding us down. If
Mm-hmm.
Gordon is walking a mile with his wife later today, it's one thing if he just walks alone. But if I put a book bag on you, Gordon, and I fill it up with rocks, and I
Mm-hmm.
say, no, take that same walk. You could do it, but it's a lot heavier. It's a
Right.
much harder walk. When I could
Right.
say, hey, is it heavy like that? Is it just this whole point of like how heavy it could be when you don't have to carry that weight if you give it away?
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
when we sit with clients, we get to give that space to say, hey, don't carry all that alone. Let's have
Mm-hmm.
some space to get rid of some of that where you can go off and be free.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and that is absolute truth there. Regardless of what you might believe or whatever faith you might follow or not follow, um,
Mm,
none of this we have to do alone.
that's right.
And that's again, that's where healing occurs. And had somebody mention to me the other day is that there is a difference between healing and a cure. I mean, a lot of us can be healed, but there's
Mm,
not always a cure. And so I think that was something that
mm.
just kind of resonated for me. So yeah, I think that's
That's I like that. I like that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that
yeah.
is good.
So, well, Derrick, I know we could spend all day, and hopefully one day we'll get to do that. Um, just talking about these things. But what would you want people that are in in our field and do what we do to know that would maybe help them feel better about what they're doing?
Hmm. I just want to encourage people. It's such a field that's needed. If you're a
Hmm.
therapist out there and you're wondering, like, is my calling, is it important work that I'm doing? I simply want to say yes. I think about how we all eat food, Gordon. We all need to
Hmm.
eat. And there's a
Hmm.
restaurant on every single corner all over this
Hmm.
planet.
Hmm.
But yet somebody doesn't say, well, there's already too many restaurants. So maybe you're listening, you're like, there's so many therapists. I feel the same way. There's a lot of them. You can Google
Hmm.
right now, therapists near me, and just watch how many come up.
Hmm.
But it's something about you specifically. So
Hmm.
somebody's listening right now, Gordon, and they're saying, am I any different? What's
Hmm.
special about me? There's already 20 other therapists in this city or this town. There's 100 more over
Hmm.
here. I'm simply saying, what about your voice? I recognize that someone's listening to me right now and they're like, let me Google what Greensboro, North Carolina is because I want Derrick.
Hmm.
Because
All
there's a
right.
voice that people have that resonates with them specifically. There's a lot
Hmm.
of podcasts out there, but somebody's looking for Gordon's voice. And there's something to be proud of when it comes to that. So if you're a therapist and you're questioning, is this for you? I just
Hmm.
want to encourage you no matter what phase of stage you're in right now, stay focused and remember your purpose. What's the why that you did it in the first place? Remember what
Hmm.
I said early on. I simply love people. I want to see
Hmm.
people win in life. I want people to be all that God's called them to be. So whatever role I play in that, let me do it. And I want to roll my sleeves up and be willing to do it for them. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, thanks, Derrick. So tell folks how they can get in touch with you if they want to connect with you more and that sort of thing.
Well, sounds good. I appreciate this time together, Gordon, and just thank you for this space. Um, my business is called Transformation Christian Counseling. So again, if you can look me up on my website, transformationcc.com. That's again, transformationcc.com. You can find me there. And again, I
Hmm.
have a marriage summit that's coming up just in a couple, it'll be
Oh,
in Valentine's Day coming up, February 14th. If you're in North Carolina, oh my goodness, it's something
uh-huh.
you would want to attend, and you'll be
Well,
able to find that on our website as well. That's
uh,
something coming up, and it's for couples. And again, I like bringing men and women together, coming together to talk about the love and just be transformed in that. So,
awesome.
yeah, that's where you can find
Awesome.
me. You can Google me, Facebook me, any of those things. I'm
Yeah.
there.
And we'll have links in the show notes and the show summary for people to access it easily. So,
Yeah,
well, Derrick, I'm so glad we got to spend this time together, and I'm sure our paths will cross again.
absolutely. This has been a blast, Gordon. Thanks so much for having me.
Okay. Thank you.